What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow. So today we are back going to be talking about Survivor Season 43, Episode 6, the Merge recap episode. So my name is Rachel.
I'm Alyssa, and this week for Merge, we didn't really have a merge. We had Mergatory, as we kind of assumed that we would have. And so, all I gotta say is thank you, Survivor Gods, for getting rid of that stupid ass hourglass twist.
It was a Mergatory, which was interesting that Cassidy says Mergatory. It becomes the name of the episode. But I was like, Xander said Mergatory also in season 41. So you can just say the same things now and get the title episode named after you.
I mean, it could just be there wasn't really any other, iconic line. So,
Yeah, because next week they should have named it Alligabler, not it's like Bull in the China Shop next week.
yeah,
Missing out, just like when they should have named the episode Pineapple Zone.
really. Yeah.
So I thought it was a fun episode, though. It was sort of stressful watching it, but I enjoyed myself.
Yeah, I also enjoyed it. I think it was a pretty standard merge episode in that everyone is kind of trying to figure each other out, and there was a lot of different names that were brought up as possibilities for who was going home. So
Yeah, so for confessionals this episode, Ellie, she had the most number with 7 confessionals. Makes sense given that she goes home this episode. The person with the least number of confessionals is Dwight with 0. So, not a good thing for him, I guess, in the long run, having 0 confessionals here at a pivotal vote merge episode. Cody is still the person who has the most number of confessionals over these 6 episodes with 31. And Ellie actually had the second most number of confessionals total out of everyone left in the game at 28.
yeah, I mean, I don't think that Dwight having 0 confessionals was really that much of a surprise. He hasn't really been a big strategic force or a big force like at all. So I think I was not expecting Dwight to have a breakout episode.
Yeah, so maybe not very good for Dwight's winner chances here, but I guess
What winner chances?
Janine and Cassidy both had low numbers of confessionals, and over the past few episodes, they have gotten more. So maybe he'll start to get an uptick soon.
Yeah, I don't think so. But, you know, I
A
think at this
negative
point, if
Nelly.
not a negative Nelly, just, they can't give everyone tons of confessionals. And I think that Dwight is relatively unimportant in the story of the greater game. So if he starts getting more confessionals, I would assume it's his time to go. So.
Yeah, we've seen that with editing in the past. So for this episode, we jump straight into the merge, basically. No pre stuff that we have to get into. And they're like, it's day 12. We're going into the merge. I laughed out loud. I was like, what the heck? It is only day 12, not even 2 weeks, and we're merging. It just feels so different.
Yeah, I guess for them it probably feels different because they've been out on the island and one day probably feels like a billion. But yeah, it was kind of weird. I thought it was interesting that some of them were so quick to assume it was a real merge and then had to be like, no no no. Like they had to be pulled back. I think Carla being like, "Oh, I think it's going to be a fake merge," definitely showed that she had knowledge of the game and awareness of what was going on because it was a fake merge.
True. So we see Ryan. He says that he's a free agent now after last tribal council, which we were thinking last week, okay, is this the right move for Carla and James to vote out Gio and potentially piss Ryan off? So it seems like getting this confessional from Ryan, maybe it's going to be foreshadowing that next week, in a few weeks, Ryan is going to maybe flip on Carla and James. Maybe he's the reason that Carla or James gets voted out because, like we said last week, okay, maybe Ryan is really, really angry at them for voting out his buddy after he threw the challenge to get Cassidy out.
The thing is, Ryan hasn't exactly been shown to be very strategically aware. Like his whole thing about like at the merge feast, he was like, "This could be final seven," and everyone else was like, dude, we don't even know each other." Like I feel like Ryan definitely wouldn't have. He wouldn't be the one to be throwing out James or Carla's name. He would have to be the one who just went along with it. So
That's true. Just flipping though in general, he would maybe potentially flip if he actually is angry about them voting Geo out. But yeah, probably not the mastermind unless he's actually big braining us and everyone on the island by saying dumb things like let's be final seven when he's actually not thinking of that.
I think that might be assuming a lot about his intent, but yeah.
So we see Owen, he is getting all of the information. I thought the editors, they're being nice to him. They gave him that little Chiron, like he said. He's sort of metagaming it here, talking about, okay, there should be the Chiron on the screen saying no advantages for Owen. At the premiere episode, we saw Owen talking about getting the intro sequence package, and the editors were nice to him there as well. And they gave him the little intro sequence. So I'm like, okay, good for Owen. He's getting all of these like Survivor bucket list items checked off by being meta and saying these things in confessionals. But I do agree with Owen. These things are sort of hard to keep track of because everyone has so many different things. Gabler has this idol that's good for one tribal. Janine has an idol and no vote. Jesse has no vote. Noel has a steal a vote. And then the only two things he's maybe not sure of at the current moment was who has the other two idols, which we know Carla has an idol and Cody has an idol. So good for Owen. He's got a lot of information here about where these advantages are.
Yeah, I think that also the other thing that makes it difficult to keep track of advantages is even though they'll have the little thing about like, oh, this person has this, this, and this, they're very rarely on the screen all at the same time. So like having that reset on the merge when when Owen was narrating everything and even the ones that Owen didn't know about were put up on the screen, that was really helpful. I feel like for me, even as like a more than casual viewer, it was helpful to figure out what was happening, what the lay of the land was. So
Exactly. It was like a little cheat sheet. Okay, let's reset for the merge. Here is the list of all of the things in play. That I loved it. It was really good, especially for maybe new viewers too. Like they would have no idea who has what.
yeah, and so I also thought our prediction about someone being able to tell where the idol was because of the whole bead thing that came true. I was like,
Yo, we said it last week. We just said it would be really interesting, funny, like good strategy if people can figure out who has the other Beware Advantage idols based off of maybe missing beads. If someone casually brings up, hey, yeah, this person was asking for beads, that's so random, but it tips people off about who has the idol, which what we saw happen. So it does seem like Noel and maybe Dwight, they were in the conversation talking with Ellie and Sammy. Noel was the person saying, yeah, Cody is so fun. He went to tribal council with that palm frond hat and he asked everyone for beads. Oh, ding, ding, ding for Ellie and Sammy because they know Janine asked for beads and they know that she has that idol. Oops. Now, multiple people know that Cody probably has the idol for Red.
yeah, I think that's going to be interesting because Cody doesn't know that they know. So spicy.
Yeah, so what we were thinking pre-merge, maybe Red, the foursome of Vessi, Cody, Jesse, Noel, and Dwight might not be as close as we thought after the NECA vote. We thought, okay, maybe they created some kind of deal or alliance to agree to vote NECA out over Noel or Dwight. And maybe they told each other about the advantages, but it doesn't seem like Noel and Dwight knew about the idol. So I do also want to know, did Noel tell them about the steal a vote? Because we see Noel tell Owen about it. If she didn't tell her fellow Red, like Cody and Jesse, that could also be sort of bad for their foursome.
It felt really random that Noelle told Owen about the steal of vote. Like I felt like we missed a lot of that conversation because it's like you just met. Come on,
Well, I think it was from their island trip together. You know, her, James, and Owen had their bond
Oh yeah, I
visit.
got mixed up with who went on which trip together. So that would make sense. Still kind of is like, did you really have to tell the man? But I guess it's good to build trust or whatever.
But also, yeah, still kind of random if you didn't remember who went on the trips together, like you just said.
Yeah. Or if you're like me and you mix up who went on the trips together.
Yeah, so we see Ellie telling Janine about the Vessi idol, so I wonder how many people know about it, if it's spreading like wildfire over there. So I feel like maybe it's just a matter of time until people figure out that Carla has the Coco idol for the blue team. And it seems like right now that no one else knows about Carla's idol besides Carla.
I thought it was really funny. Someone was like, "Yeah, we have no idea where the idols are," and it's like trying to lie to everyone else is kind of a bold move, but get that bread. You do you.
Well, I think was that Cassidy who said it? It might actually be true.
I don't remember who said what anymore. I kind of just, I watched this episode twice, but the second time I just spent half the episode like this because I was like, "Oh, you guys are so dumb." But
So we go to the immunity challenge. Jeff says you have to earn the merge. There is no hourglass twist this time, so yippee for that. Except Jeff says nobody can take this away. No one can take the win away from you. And I laughed. I was like, huh. Given how Survivor was in 41 and 42, and Danny being angry at production, I was like, something fishy could still happen here, even though Jeff says no one can take away the advantage from you.
yeah, for me, it would have been even more suspicious that Jeff specifically says, "Oh, no one can take this away." Like, I'd be like, "Are you sure about that?"
Yeah, like Jeff, we need the fine print. What does this mean? Because the winners previously thought they won, and then they didn't win.
Yeah, but
Here, the winners are seemingly actually safe, and the losers of the challenge are the ones up for elimination. And Jeff just says, "Okay, you win the merge feast." Jeff, where's the Applebee's?
yeah, where is the Applebee's? There was no product placement this time.
I know. I was going to text you, Alyssa, saying, "Oh, let's go get Applebee's so we can commemorate the merge." And then there wasn't even any Applebee's in this episode. I needed
There
to
wasn't
see.
Outback either. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, I'm like, who? We showed them eating chicken and all this other food at the merge feast. I wanted to see them eat Applebee's.
Yeah, so
But the twist here, because there's 13 people, only 12 get to participate in the challenge. So, Jeff, they could have done an hourglass twist with the odd person out. The odd person out gets the gray rock, and then they have to bet on which team they think will win the challenge. So, we've seen that in previous Survivor seasons. Noelle, she gets the gray rock here. Where the two teams for the challenge, red is Sammy, Owen, Cody, James, Cassidy, and Ellie. Blue is Gabler, Jesse, Ryan, Dwight, Janine, and Carla. So, what do you think of Noelle's decision to choose the blue team to back them?
I mean, what she said about them being pretty evenly matched teams, I feel like definitely was my take on it as well. And so, I feel like Noelle kind of just flipped a 50-50 coin in her mind. I wonder if there was any strategy as far as like betting on the team that had fewer of her team members on it or more of her team members on it. Yeah. So,
I agree. I think like it was the right decision because the teams were so equal. There's 4 men and 2 women on each team. It wasn't like in 41 where it was just Xander and then a bunch of women where you're like, "Oh, this isn't that evenly matched," but these two teams seem pretty evenly matched. And so I also do wonder, okay, did she think strategically here or was it more random? Because strategically, I think she also picked the right team to back Blue over the red team because red only had Cody on it versus blue had Dwight and Jesse, 2 of her OG red team members. So if the red team did lose and that team were the ones up for elimination at tribal, it would be Cody or it would be Jesse, Dwight, and Noelle all up for elimination. But they would have more numbers compared to if it were just Cody and Noelle up for elimination. Just like we saw this episode where people were like, okay, maybe let's split the vote on Cassidy and James in case an idol were played. If it were just two of you and it was just Cody and Noelle, people could be like, let's split the vote on Cody and Noelle just in case an idol were played. So I do wonder if she was doing it strategically or more random, but either way, she picked correct strategically, I think, as well.
Yeah.
So I thought it was also funny. Janine, she goes to the wrong mats and she's like, we got this, we got this. And then Cassidy is like, oh, you're on the wrong mat, babes. And then she goes to the other team and is like, we got this, we got this.
Yeah, that was kind of funny, kind of a dodo moment. But, you know, I was happy that she was hyping people up.
Yes, a good cheerleader, even though you said you got this to both teams. Either way, that was a cute, funny moment. But for the challenge, you have to remove sandbags to get a heavy sled. You have to collect these heavy blocks, use the blocks to create a staircase, and then you have to go up a warped wall, and then you do a puzzle at the end. And I was like, okay, this wall, it's just like American Ninja Warrior now.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was funny. Jeff was like, this is the highest ramp Survivor has ever seen. And I'm like, Jeff, you shouldn't be putting in random challenges just so you can say, like, oh, this is the most blah, blah, blah the Survivor's ever done before. Like, soon he's going to be like, this is the puzzle with the most pieces. And like, bruh, I don't care if it's the highest wall in Survivor history if it's not fun to watch. So,
The walls in American Ninja Warrior are higher, and they don't have the ropes at the top.
yeah.
But I thought the puzzle here was a cool puzzle. This was a fun challenge. I was sort of stressed the whole time watching it because it was very, very close at the end. And Carla, she crushes her hand like halfway through the challenge. That is a big ouch moment. But seriously, like, so good for Carla for completing this challenge. I would be so freaked out if that were me. Like, I thought my finger would have gotten sliced off.
Oh my god, yeah, that was crazy. And then when she had to go up the wall and people had to help her up the wall, I was like, don't touch her hand, don't touch her hand. Like, that's going to be so painful.
Exactly. I was so freaked out when the wall part too, because I would be like, yeah, grab me by the wrist. Like, don't pull my finger off, or like, don't. I just really good for Carla for pushing through and continuing in that challenge. Ryan, like we've said, he is very physically impressive, and to have like the thought to go upside down to help Carla up the wall as well. I was like, wow, that is a ingenious move here.
I thought it was funny when Jeff was like, he's like Spider-Man. Like, that's what everyone thinks when someone goes upside down like that. But I was surprised. I was like, is there are you allowed to say that? Are you allowed to cross over franchises like that?
Maybe they had to pay money to say it.
Maybe.
So red, though, they were leading the puzzle because of the wall portion, but blue caught up on the puzzle. So for blue, Dwight and Janine were on the puzzle, and for red, it was Owen and Ellie. Both teams were very, very close on this puzzle, just a couple pieces apart. So it was sort of stressful at the end here. And then everyone was whispering like words out loud, and then they were like, no, shut up, like STFU, which I thought was funny. They were like, aggressively telling each other to shut up, but whispering.
Yeah, that was funny because I'm also like, how loud or how quiet do you have to be heard or not heard?
Yeah. I feel like it's just sort of a, knee-jerk reaction. You're like, shh, don't say it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
But blue wins, so I was happy, excited for them. The blue team, again, was Gabler, Jesse, Ryan, Dwight, Janine, and Carla. I thought it was also lucky for Janine and Jesse to win this challenge because they have no vote this episode and they're safe now. So it's like, okay, losing their vote last week didn't really matter. So good for them. Gabler has an idol that's expiring, but he is also on this safe team. So maybe he could use it on someone else. Similarly, Janine is on the safe team, but has an idol that she could use on someone else. So could be spicy.
Yeah, I think the only thing that annoys me about this is I still just don't like when more than half the people are unsafe or are safe, because it's like if we had really wanted to get all crazy with like idols and stuff, there were still 3 idols available. So yeah, I I like this better than the hourglass, but I still wish that they did something other than just everyone on the winning team is safe and everyone on the losing team is on the chopping block.
I guess it would be interesting if they did like a schoolyard pick and then there's more strategy into the teams compared to random
I mean,
teams.
even then, I just feel like too many people immune at once isn't fun.
Maybe
Like,
3 teams. 4, 4, 4, one person sits out and only 4 people are safe and 8 people are up for elimination.
yeah, or just, I don't know, do something to make it interesting.
Above our
It would,
pay grade.
it would have been more interesting if the people who didn't have votes were also, like, not safe.
So
But,
you would have thought blue should lose.
yeah, basically. But that's just from the, like, oh, I want chaos perspective and not necessarily the, like, what I actually wanted to happen. But
Yeah, I think it's better than the hourglass twist, definitely for sure. But also, I think, like we've said in the past, these pivotal votes, the merge vote is so important. Final 8 is so important. Why are there so many twists and advantages? I think those pivotal points should be the straightforward vote.
yeah, like you don't need crazy gimmicks to make the merge vote interesting.
Yeah, because maybe Ellie could have gone home anyways.
Yeah, but
So after the challenge, we go to the merge feast. They are eating and chatting. And this is where Ryan, he first says, okay, let's all be a final 7. Also, LOL moment. Everyone's faces there, like, did we just hear this dude correctly? Like, what is he saying kind of thing? Where Ryan's pitch, I think maybe he would have gotten more slack for saying something like this, but it seems like it was maybe overshadowed by what Gabler said after.
I feel like people are definitely going to remember that Ryan said this next week.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, and I feel like Gabler being like, oh, Ellie, like, rooted around in my bag on day 3, and I'm never letting go of that. Like, oh my goodness.
I thought what Gabler said, he says, okay, Ellie went through my bag. And in confessional, he says, by throwing out Ellie's name, I was trying to throw out Ellie's name. I was like, okay, great. And then he's like, Ellie is my enemy. Which I was like, there must be something with Mike's and holding grudges because Mike Gabler here and last season, Mike Turner, similarly last season with Mike Turner, Mike, after Chanel voted for him, really disliked Chanel. Here, after Gabler learns that Ellie and Janine potentially go through his bag, he's like, I hate this person now.
I just think it's so weird too because it's like he's like I would rather vote out someone who I know is my enemy, and he's like, it's like bro, she's only your enemy because you made her your enemy, you know, like she would have been happy to work with him for this vote, and
I think it's good for Gabler. He put out a name and it was completed, maybe more so by other people completing it for him after he put the name out there. But I think it's good for him in Survivor just to say, okay, this is what I want. I dislike this person. I'm going to throw their name out there. He's not going to beat around the bush about it, but just be blunt. And he's just being straightforward here, like what he said in the confessional. I feel like we don't necessarily maybe not see that too much in Survivor where people are trying to like, okay, I want to get this person out, but I can't say their name because they're too powerful. So let me take out their right hand person. Gabler's like, no thanks. I don't like her. Let me vote for her.
the thing is, you saw Ellie get taken out partially because she offered a name. And even people who are on Gabler's side, people who are Gabler's allies, are kind of pissed at him for being so blunt about like not liking Ellie and the fact that he's a bull in the china shop. Like he did this once and he'll do it again, and you don't want your allies to have no strategic sense whatsoever. So I feel like Gabler kind of effed himself over where he's making himself more and more of a liability with every passing second because he's kind of just like like, good for him. The person he wanted to go home went home, but also at what cost?
That's true. I think for Gabler, maybe his winner chances aren't that great, but maybe his chances of making it to the final three have gone up if people are thinking, okay, let me bring him to the end because his winner chances aren't that good. But I do think because Sammy and Owen chose Gabler over Ellie this episode, more so like, okay, they let Ellie go home. Sammy voted for Ellie. Owen didn't vote for Ellie, but maybe he was just voting that way because he didn't want more votes to go to him in case a shot in the dark was played. So I do think because the other yellow team members, besides obviously Janine and Ellie, are super close, but Sammy and Owen choosing going along with Gabler's plan maybe helps Gabler's reputation a little bit. But I do think like he's probably not winning, even though he got his way this episode. He
The
still
thing
has
is,
that chaotic energy.
they didn't choose Gabler's plan because it was Gabler's plan. They chose Gabler's plan because they recognized that Ellie was a threat and it was going to be bad for them if she stayed around. Like, if they had done it to appease Gabler or because they thought that, like, they needed Gabler going forward, I would say, yeah, it's a good thing for him. But the fact that, like, they did it for their own good and it just so happened that Gabler was the one who came up with the name, like, I don't think it says much of anything. Like, they didn't choose Gabler over Ellie. They just chose that they didn't want Ellie because they saw Ellie as a threat. Like Sammy says in the episode, like, Ellie is too good at this game. I don't want to be with her going forward because she's good at the game. So
I think it's a mix of both because after we see like Ellie is confronting people, she confronts Gabler and then she confronts Sammy. I think after that confrontation with Sammy and Owen, your trust is sort of broken. I don't think for Sammy and Owen you could repair that relationship with Ellie and potentially Janine because Ellie already knows, oh, you threw her under the bus to Gabler. Why did you tell him that I was going through his bag? So I do think because of this momentum that Gabler started, it sort of pushes Owen and Sammy to have to make this move against Ellie because there's no way you can get back to 100% trust after someone tells you that they threw your name, like threw you out there and told him about like why were you going through his bag. So like I don't know, it'll be interesting next time to see because I do think going into next week it's going to be a 4-4-4 split. Owen and Sammy still need Gabler in that sense. Even if they're annoyed with him with his chaotic energy, they can't really kick him to the curb yet.
I mean, they can if they combine with a different group of four, because then it would be 7-5 even if Gabler wasn't on board. So
That's true. I feel like if I were in that situation, though, I would still want to keep four strong. Like we saw them this episode say, let's just stay Baka strong. Let's say stay five strong. This is why we came into the merge with five so we could have the numbers against the other teams. If I were in a 4-4-4 split, even if I didn't necessarily like the four I was in, I would want to keep my four strong and try to get another foursome to go to three because even if you don't like each other, you never know. They might just want to pagong everyone else and have the easy ride to the final six when then they can make a move.
the thing is, I don't think that Janine will do that because Ellie was like her right hand person. And then I can't see her being like, yeah, it was okay that we voted Ellie out, but now I'm going to be ride or die with the three of you who basically screwed over my right hand person. So it might not even be like Gabler that breaks away and makes them no longer four strong. It could be Janine who breaks away and is like, I don't want to work with you guys after what you did to Ellie. So
Yeah, it could be the case. It could also be the case where Janine, I think, maybe depending how good Sammy and Owen are with talking with her, maybe they could be like, okay, it's us three. We're going to drag Gabler along. Like, we didn't flip on you because there were so many votes. Like, Owen didn't even vote for Ellie. Owen voted for James. So they could have some logical reasoning. Yeah, Janine, me as Owen and Sammy, we didn't flip on you. We wanted Ellie to stay. We were also blindsided. Olin Gabler is the one that's a little bit whack right now, but we should stay four strong. So I do think Owen and Sammy could find a way to sort of finagle their way back in with Janine if they're saying, yeah, I didn't vote for her, because there were so many votes. Sammy, even though he did vote for Ellie, could totally lie and say he voted for someone else.
He could, but it's kind of like, I'm not sure that he would. Like, I don't see. Is that fracture worth all the energy to repair when there's so many other people you could still work with? For both sides. Where, like, Janine might not think that Sammy and Owen's promise is enough. Like, they said that they were going to wrangle Gately this past episode, and they didn't, and Ellie went home because of it. So.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting going into next week. So I think I'm more on the side 4-4-4. Like, I would want to stick with my foursome, even though you might not necessarily like them, to try to maybe combine with another, but you still want to stay 4. I wouldn't want to risk one of my foursomes. And I think you're on the side of maybe risk one of your OG foursomes.
I mean, I think risk part of your OG foursome if one of them is outwardly antagonistic to you and the other two didn't do enough to help you when you like needed them on your side. Kind of like, you don't want to become the goat who is so beholden to your foursome that like you'll let them do anything to you. Like, don't be a doormat.
So pre-tribal council, we see Ellie is saying, okay, red and yellow should team up. We've saw that previously in the past episodes with them helping each other in challenges. She tells the blue team members the name is Cody, but the real plan is going to be splitting the votes on Cassidy and James. We see James saying, okay, I think Ellie is a little bit sketch. And so it was I think good for James here that we're getting to see more of his strategy and potential social game this episode, because previously I feel like we've seen James mostly with, okay, it's James and Carla, not just James. And where in this James Carla pairing, it seems like James is more of the sidekick to Carla. So now that we're actually seeing, like, okay, James can potentially hold his own. James has this read against Ellie here. Maybe he's not just Carla's sidekick, but we'll see him flourish coming up.
I think the fact that James got absolutely no content on his own birthday probably means that we're not going to see a James resurgence. But, you know,
what do you mean? He was looking for idols when he said, I'm looking for idols today.
Yeah, but so I guess you are definitely more optimistic about people being able to come back from being lesser edited.
Yeah, I think for this episode, I think Ellie had to go home. Like, it would sort of be a bummer if James or Cassidy were the vote here and they got blindsided, because they didn't really get too much content this episode.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I wasn't expecting a lot from James this episode, but Cassidy is an interesting one because I can't tell if like her uptick is because she's going home soon or what.
Yeah, so tribal council, Ellie in her exit interview was saying that she and Janine were confident that the votes were not going to go Ellie's way. So that's why Janine didn't play the idol here. And also partially because of what Sammy was saying at tribal council. Basically, Sammy was saying, you know, you don't want to rock the apple cart. Don't play any advantages, because then you might make the people that you're aligned with sketchy of you. So it does seem like here Ellie and Janine were confident that Ellie was going to stay. But I think in terms of like this episode and the storylines that we've seen, Ellie had to go home now, because this is like the tension that we've been talking about on OG Baka. Now we can finally move forward because some of it has gone away.
Yeah.
So I thought this was a good end to this drama. The 11 votes were cast because 13 people, 2 people weren't voting. 7 were for Ellie, 2 were James, which were Ellie and Owen voting for him. 1 for Cassidy and 1 for Owen, which Carla and Noelle were those 2 other votes. There's not enough time in the episode, obviously, but I would be interested in why people voted the way they did for like Owen voting for James, and then Carla and Noelle voting for Cassidy and Owen. Owen voting for James, probably to prevent maybe a shot in the dark. James would get more votes, and then Owen wouldn't go home. And then maybe Carla and voting that way to, if she played her idol for James, then someone else would go. So I would want more info there, but obviously that is just so small that there's not enough time for it.
I mean, we might also get some of it at the beginning of the next episode, like if James is like, "Oh, who voted for me?" or something like that. So
Yeah. Too bad Gio's not there to ask. Or I guess Cassidy was the one who was asking who voted for her. But Janine, she decides not to play the idol. Do you think this is a good move or bad move?
I don't know because I think a lot of it depends on where Janine ends up going forward. Because if she can find another alliance who she can like get in tight with and like move forward with, then maybe it's a good thing that she holds on to her idol and like has it to use for herself in the future. But like if she's kind of just a free agent now, I feel like bad thing because you want to be able to, have someone to work with, have someone who's on your side. But also, people were kind of talking about her and Ellie as a pair, and we know that a lot of times when pairs get split up, the remaining member of the pair can go further just because, they're not seen as much of a threat without their other half. So
So you're saying good move, bad move.
I'm saying it depends on what
Yeah.
happens. So, because
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of it depends on Janine's social game and the choice that she makes, like we were talking about earlier, whether she stays with the four or decides to swing and go someplace else.
So I think it's a good move at this current moment to not play the idol because I think it's too early. There's still 13 people left to play your idol on someone else. At 13, I just think it's too early. Even though, okay, Ellie is your number one, Ellie is your closest ally right now. Saving a close ally can be a good thing, but I think it's too early. If it were like Jeremy saving Fishback, you do it a little bit later in the merge, not at the first vote of the merge. And I think with Janine now, because her like duo partner is voted out, she could be more of a free agent, like you were saying, which I think if you become that free agent at the right time, it's a lot less threatening. And especially if she even goes back with Sammy and Owen, Sammy and Owen are probably going to be bigger threats than Janine is. So now going into the real merge next week, she can sort of, I feel like, fall back into the shadows and let these other bigger guys get voted out before her, which can be a great spot to get to the end. And I also think like Ellie going helps Janine because if you have a duo partner as well, if Ellie and Janine were both still in the game, if they want to split the votes because of an idol, they would think logically, okay, let's split the votes on Ellie and Janine because they're close. If one of them plays the idol, that's fine because their right hand bestie gets voted out after. So I think that's a good thing. Like if people are trying to split the votes, you don't have that like obvious other person to go against. And if they're going to split votes, they probably split Owen and Sammy to get one of those two guys out over her. And I think like Sammy said, if you're playing the idol right now at 13, you might piss people off and then make yourself a bigger target. And if you play the idol this week, she wouldn't have the idol next week when I think you want to save the idol, and I wouldn't play it for an ally here.
Hmm. I do think it's interesting, like voting out the bigger guys. I feel like never even really came up, other than maybe Ellie being like, "Oh, I want to split the vote between James and Cassidy." But even then, it wasn't really like, "Oh, we're voting for James because he's a big guy who will do well in challenges." And right now, there's 8 men and 4 women left, and
Yeah,
so
sucks to be a woman this season.
yeah. And so I guess I'm interested to see if the gender balance will like swing a little bit now that the merge is coming. Because I wonder, like, do people think that Sammy, Jesse, Ryan, I guess maybe you could throw James and Cody in as like possible challenge beasts. So
Yeah, I think the remaining women could fly under the radar. Like people are going to want to maybe start voting out the bigger guys, but also when it's 8-4, if you're saying, okay, let's target the big dogs, the big guys, if you're a big guy, you're going to be like, no, like we've seen, people like Tony do, Jeremy do. If people are targeting people that are similar to you, you're not going to want that because you want your shields to stay in the game. So maybe like the preview showed, people wanted to target Noelle. Maybe Noelle can go, and then that's the kind of thing that's happening. But for Ellie, I think she could be invited to play again. Like we said at the beginning, she had the second most number of confessionals for the people still in the game. So she's good on TV. I think she's someone that you can root for and root against. And I do feel like she's got sort of Kelly Wentworth energy in her exit interviews. She seems like she knows where she went wrong and where she can switch things to make things better for her game going into a second time. So I do think if she played again, she could do better.
Mm-hmm.
So we need that pre-merge versus post-merge season like Survivor South Africa. So someone like Ellie could be invited back to play again. And I do think it's sort of funny, sad. So remember episode 1, Gabler says, just vote me out. I'm not going to play my idol. I'll play the shot in the dark, but I messed up in the challenge. You all can vote me out. Ellie was the person, convinced him not to sacrifice himself and to get himself voted out. And now Ellie goes home because of it.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think as far as like the big guys protecting each other, that could kind of go one way or another. Because also, if you're a big guy and you're relying on immunity to like get through, you kind of want the least amount of competition possible. So like maybe you're okay with one or two of the other big guys going, and then you'll see what happens from there.
Yeah, I think it's similar to what Marianne says in her exit interviews. Basically, when you're going into Final 5, you want to be the third most like threatening person because then you vote out the 2 most threatening people and then you go to the final 3 with 2 less threatening, less challenge ability people. She said it way better than that in her Rob interview, which was like 6 hours long, but it's definitely a good listen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do not have the mental capacity to listen to a 6-hour interview, but good for you.
So I'm excited for next week. There's definitely a lot of different possibilities of what could happen, especially with this 4-4-4 split going into next week. So, like, will people want to stay together, or are people angry with their OG tribe members and are like, F them, let me make some new buddies?
Yeah, I think that'll be interesting to see. I feel like the original Vessi is maybe still kind of together. So I think the real interesting bits for me will be the Coco and Baka tribes, just because like Ryan suggested the final 7 when not all of the rest of the Coco tribe was like there for the final 7 that he suggested. So that could maybe cause some drama. We've already been over the Baka tribe and their mess. So I would be interested to see if the Vessi tribe is still Vessi strong or.
Yeah, or maybe they split up. If Noelle and Dwight learned Cody didn't tell them about the idol, but Jesse knew about it, or if Noelle didn't tell Jesse and Cody about the steal a vote and they find out that Dwight knew about it, maybe they all break up, just like we saw the divorce between Jesse and Dwight.
The thing is, I feel like this whole idea of like, oh, if we were really allies, you would have told me about this is kind of dumb. Because it's like, you don't tell everyone about every advantage that you have, especially when you're not sure whether or not there will be another vote that you guys have, like, before merge or not. Because if you tell everyone on your tribe about an advantage and then you go to tribal again as that tribe, you might as well not have an advantage. So.
And also, it's the fact that, like, if you tell everyone everything, then how would anyone know if they're really close with you? Because you tell everyone everything, you know?
Yeah. It's better to save it and be like, I didn't tell you about this earlier because I wanted to keep it from getting into the wrong ears. But yeah, I think the important thing is just making sure that your allies don't accidentally tell everyone what you have because it hurts worse to hear it from someone else.
Yeah, which could be a problem if people tell Noelle, hey, that hat story you were telling us, actually, it wasn't just a fun hat story.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for next week, though.
I am also excited for next week. I feel like there will be some interesting fallout from this vote, and I always think the merge is a fun and funky time.
Yes, end us, please.
Yes. So let us know in the comments down below what you thought of this merge episode. Do you think that voting out Ellie was the right choice for all the people that voted for her? Do you think that Janine made the right choice by not playing her idol? Who do you think is going home next week? Are we gonna see people sticking with their original tribe and be a 4-4-4, or is things gonna get crazy? Let us know all that and more in the comments down below, and we will see you guys next week. Bye.